The nature of education has been changed in recent years.
Now we have the globalization era of the talent movement.
I think the government is doing at least two things. One is to establish English taught programs. The other one, establish the Chinese Scholarship Council.
Right. What is driving all of this?
Hello and welcome to this edition of Crossover. I'm Ji Xiajun.
And I'm Yi Shu. So in the last 5 years, there's been an intense, or even more, several
More than
years.
5
yes,
years.
5 to 10
If
years.
not 15 years. Yeah.
Okay, 15 years.
Yeah.
There's been an intense acceleration in the internationalization of higher education here in China. And that's happened in two ways. One is when you have Chinese people going abroad,
out.
like you did. You
Yeah.
were a pioneer, some 15,
No,
16.
we have pioneers joining us today here in the studio.
But on the flip side, we have a lot of international students now coming to programs here in China
We're
for
seeing
study.
that happening more now.
That
these
is
days.
now happening,
Yeah.
and that's a new phenomenon that we're seeing in the last several years.
Yep.
This is what we're talking about today in this edition of Crossover. And I'd like to introduce our four guests today. We have Dr. Wang from the Center for China and Globalization. We have Dr. Jiang from Peking University, Dr. Chu from a joint program between Sichuan University and the University of Pittsburgh, and Dr. Wang from Tsinghua University. Welcome, the four of you, to Crossover.
Four
Thank you.
doctors, welcome. I mean, are we doctors? No, we're not doctors. So, Dr. Wang, you're from China and Globalization. We start from you, right? I mean, we were talking about what the word we use, the internationalization of higher education in China. So, what exactly does it mean?
Well, what means that we see the globalization trend as happening all those years. We see the globalization of the goods movement. We see the globalization of the capital movement. Now we have the globalization era of the talent movement. People movement, actually. So for example, every day there's about 20,000 people across Pacific between United States and China, and another 20,000 between Europe and China too. So you see that a lot of that is student traffic. For example, last year China has about 500,000 students going to study abroad, and also of China also there's another 400,000 foreign students studying in China right now. So.
I want to touch upon that. So 500,000 students in 2015, and that's grown because in 2010 it was about 280,000.
Yes.
So nearly doubled
in 5 years.
Wow.
Right?
So in other words, internationalization means we have foreign students coming to China, we have Chinese students more going to other countries, and we have international programs like the one in Sichuan University, right? And the curriculum.
Right, but I think some kind of balance may be required. For example, in the United States, about 300,000 students studying abroad.
Yeah.
Only 5% come to China. And on the other hand, I think China, at least what I know about 1 million students going studying abroad, 30% go to the United States.
Right.
now
So the
it's more than
factor.
half. Now it's more than half.
Yeah. So it's the difference almost about a factor of 20 here. So pretty significant. So sometimes in the future, the balance may be one issue we need to address here.
Well, Dr. Wang from Tsinghua University, what is driving all of this? We talked about how, globalization has hit many other industries before, and now it's really affecting education. What are those factors?
Well, I think the major issue is that the nature of education has been changed in recent years, particularly in China. And previously, we regard education as a domestic issue, is something relating to sovereignty. But now we realize education is actually preparing for the people, for the future, particularly for young people. And they are the future. And what is the future? We must look at the current situation, particularly the current strength of the international development, which is internationalization. So any education can claim is as the best without teaching international issues, without teaching the economic, legal, social system of the other countries. In terms of that, Chinese education has been remarkably developed in recent years. And secondly, internationalization is the major drive for the restructuring of Chinese education. And probably 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, and we see a lot of Chinese students are going out, and particularly even for present time, we see people are going out. But if you want to become an international, power and big country, and the education has failed to attract international students to come over, this is not up to the standards, current standards, international education. So in that sense, we're actually trying to recruit international students to come to China.
So was this initiative put forth by the government, the Chinese government? I mean, each of you represent your own institutions, but is there an overarching policy by the government saying, you know, we want to increase the number of international students coming to China?
I think we do. I think the government is pushing for more English taught programs, attract more international students to Chinese campuses. So actually,
only English taught programs or Chinese taught programs for international students?
Yeah, we do. I think the government is doing like at least two things. One is to establish English taught programs. The other one establish the Chinese Scholarship Council that provides scholarship for international students to study in China. In the past, most of the international students actually study in a traditional way, that they have to speak Chinese language, master the language before they can enroll in a Chinese university. But now with the English programs, more and more
it makes
students,
it more accessible to international students.
Right.
Are we now seeing a rise in the number of foreign students now in your university?
At my university, of course. Both degree students and non-degree students. In the summer camp, right now that is happening. If you walk around the PKU campus, you see many international and foreign students.
What sort of makeup do you see in your programs at Tsinghua?
I think this is a major point. If we want to make the education internationalized, we must see what are the subjects we can offer for international students. Not only simply attracting them to come over, but you must have some strength in your education.
Internationally competitive.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. And previously, we have a lot of international students coming over for language, for culture.
That's a basic.
But this is not actually, the particular attraction for international students. And after all, students want to speak Chinese will be a minority. But if you can make your education, particularly in the different department and schools, science and social science, liberal arts, etc., which are attractive for international students to understand. For example, our program is for legal education on Chinese law. And along with the arising of the Chinese, national strength, and China become an international major player, and more international students and foreign students want to understand the legal system in China. So this is why this program has been developing very fast. And you cannot develop a program which is not actually based on your strengths, national strengths or educational strengths.
Or their needs.
Yes. So
you have to base it on what the students want and what they learn. And
so we're talking about education, but you cannot talk education without really examining and look at the real needs.
Actually,
in particular the strengths.
Right. And I know that the three of you in your respective institutions have started some very new programs to address those needs. We're going to be talking about those after this short break. Please stay tuned.
Right now, I think the question is whether we are the biggest country in producing engineers. Are the quality of engineering is still the best or not?
The president says, okay, I agree with you, but you think a way to follow the law, not really breaking the law. You are lawyers.
Welcome back to Crossover, and in this segment it will be continuing to talk about, the efforts actually made by different universities, and they've introduced different programs. So we start with the Pittsburgh program, Sichuan University. What kind of program is that?
Well, the program actually is a joint program between, like, say, Sichuan University and the University of Pittsburgh. Our emphasis is in the advanced and the sustainable manufacturing. And I think if you talk about the future direction from the global standpoint of view, like in China, for example, China is known to be one of the greatest country. In fact, the great country to produce in terms of the pool of engineers. And China known to be a world of factories.
And now in terms of innovation.
Yeah, right now I think the question is whether we are the biggest country in producing engineers. Are we, the quality of engineering is still the best or not? I think that's the next question, yes.
So what is the program designed for?
What we try to do is to implement the engineering paradigm, in fact, the manufacturing curriculum, which we excel in the United States, which emphasize innovation and the creativities, as opposed to the type of a traditional teaching approach, the listening, sitting, the lecture type, to induce some kind of innovative type of learning. The learner-centered type of learning.
Your program is a 4-year undergrad program.
Yes.
At Sichuan University in conjunction with the University of Pittsburgh.
Right.
What is special about what you've brought, I guess, kind of in a more tangible way to Sichuan University versus, I know there's a regular program as well.
Right.
What do you have in addition with this joint program for those engineering students?
I think the number one, I think the curriculum we try to do is try to, I think, one point to involve both from a global and a local standpoint of view. In one way, I think similar to, there's no such thing so-called one size fits all. For example, like Kentucky Fried Chicken, and people think global but act locally.
Right.
Yeah. So we try to do is to look at the advantage where in the United States, for example, a lot of higher education system, also the teaching approach, which excel there, we will try to bring into China.
This is one aspect of this internationalization of Chinese higher education, not just people flowing in and out. It's more about the concept.
And this is an undergrad program, which I think is relatively new, this type of joint program here in China. But we have, you know, Dr. Wang and Dr. Zhang from Tsinghua and Peking universities who are focused on, you know, higher education in terms of post-grad degrees.
Right.
Can you tell us about those programs?
At the Peking University, I work is the Yanqing Academy. So actually, the first cohort of students arrived last September. So the Yanqing Academy offers a Master of China Studies program taught in English. Actually, the curriculum is designed for the students to understand both Chinese culture and history and contemporary society and economy.
And you have international students.
Right, and actually 80% of our students are from other countries and 20% are from China. So it's also a scholarship program. We offer them the Yanqing Scholarship, that the program that they study is fully funded. Actually, I think the internationalization of Chinese university nowadays, I think one important reason is that now we are attracting really top professors from around the world to come back to teach.
So that's the motivation for Peking University to establish a program like this so that you can attract top, is that one of the motivations?
Right, not only the Yanqing Academy, but also other schools and departments. We are attracting professors from around the world.
So you're raising the profile of your institution
of the faculty,
with
and
this
then
program.
Students can study this.
Right.
Okay, like what Dr. Wang just said, the mindset is different now. Internationalization is not just about curriculum, but the mindset is totally different. So is your program in your university of the same style?
Well, I think similar in nature. I must say that before we start this kind of program, we call it Swordsman College, which is targeting at the talents throughout the world from different countries. And we already studied for many years the English program for international and foreign students, like the program at the law school is an LLM program on Chinese law, taught in English, targeting at the international student, but not only the international students sit in the classes. They sat together with the Chinese students. Actually, is a kind of mutual learning experience for students. And also for the teachers. They actually have to develop first their language ability and also different ways of teaching. The pedagogy has been changed. And also materials, textbooks needs to be revised. So there are a lot of changes actually affecting the education, particularly on the teachers as well. So this is what we studied. But interesting story is that while we proposed to have a program targeting at the international students on law in the legal field, the first question we encountered is Chinese law of academic degree stipulates every master program must run for 3 years to 2 years.
Right.
And we want to invent a program for only 1 year.
That's so much more
directly-
cost effective, right?
Yeah, this is
1 year, 3
difficulty
years.
with law. And then we discussed with the president and the vice presidents of the university, and they said, okay, I told them, this is the international standards for law, master degree, LM, for 1 year. If
But
you
it's-
want to run
Well, and
for
it's
2
very
years, no
attractive to the
student will
student.
come.
1 year is
But it's
is
not
quite
actually
feasible.
decided. It's not the call of the university. It's the Ministry of Education's
Exactly.
decision.
But the president says, okay, I agree with you, but you think a way to follow the law, not really breaking the law.
right.
You are lawyers.
Yeah, we're always
And then-
flexible. Chinese people are known for our
And
flexibility.
then studied from the law school, actually we considered carefully,
right.
and the law also says you must fulfill certain credits
Okay.
for a degree. And then we invented the program. We never call it a 1 year program. We call it a credit-oriented program.
I see.
So if you acquire
intense program.
enough
You know,
sufficient
finish your
credits,
credits within
and
like
then
1 year.
you can get a degree.
I see.
No
Right.
matter within 1 year or 2 years. Actually, this is a kind of way, particularly reflecting the Chinese social phenomena. You want to make a reform, but you must follow the law.
Yeah. Right.
So law could be
That's the
interpreted,
trade-off.
could be actually fit into the reform agenda. So this is the way of, after our argument, the university accepted. And then the Ministry of Education accepted. Now 1 year program for master is
Yeah, everyone is
actually
happy, no one breaks the law.
Right.
quite
And the
widespread.
It
students are
works.
happy.
Yep. Well,
It's worked out.
One of the things, all of yours are English-based programs. When you teach Chinese studies, when you teach the Chinese language or Chinese classics or Chinese law in English, are you losing the essence
Huh.
of
Well, I understand. Yes, that's a
Yeah.
very good question, and that question was asked to us many times. Okay, but you have to balance, right? You want to, attract young talents from the around world and teach them Chinese culture, history, arts, economics, and law. Of course, you speak in English may lose something, but of course it also depends on how you conduct
Do it.
the teaching. Actually, at the Yanqing Academy and other programs, English taught programs of Peking University, we encourage interactive teaching. So our professors are interactive, and really from the very beginning, pose questions to the students. Throughout this course, you not only attend lectures, but you also have to do your independent research on Taoism, and then share your findings
Right.
with the classmates
Right.
and professors.
Yeah.
And this, I think, will be like a better teaching approach, even if the class is taught in English. I think all the students from any part of the world
Right.
can really
Actually,
appreciate
as a
it.
matter of fact, the English is just as a tool.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Sure.
now Chinese students going abroad study such a big numbers because all those countries in France, in Spain, Germany, they offer courses in English. We just finished the ASEAN Minister Education Conference in Kunming just last week or something. There was about 120,000 Chinese students studying ASEAN countries. There's only 70,000 ASEAN students studying China.
Oh, really?
Yes, because they offer English programs.
Right.
So we should have the ability to offer English programs so that we can attract more students.
Well, do you hope that you'll keep more of the Chinese students here then with these international programs?
Well, I'm sure.
Or is that not the goal?
No, I think it's no contradictory because the Chinese students would love to also have English program too.
Right.
So if we come back to the very point you mentioned earlier about the deficit of people,
Yeah.
do you think these programs now are actually addressing that issue? With the one with Pittsburgh program, you're basically keeping Chinese students because you have international programs anyway,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
You're keeping Chinese students
Yeah.
home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, with the two
Exactly.
programs in Tsinghua and Beida, they're attracting more international students coming to China.
Exactly. I think the student going abroad, we lose a lot of intelligence, highly smart
talent,
student,
yeah.
talented student. So By offering a program at the Sichuan University, you actually keep a student on the campus studying international curriculum or using English. At the same time, you can get a lot of international students come to China.
I see, Dr. Chu.
Yeah, well, I think the engineering is a little bit different. Yeah, engineering, for example, I think in this case, teaching English as the official language in our institute can also attract the students from, say, abroad, like Japan or the United States, Canada, or in Europe, come to study here. So I think it's a vehicle actually is needed to facilitate this kind of reverse, having more international come to China.
That's like your engineering language.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's relatively simple.
Dr. Wang,
Yeah.
these three
Yes.
gentlemen, they represent three of the premier institutions,
Exactly.
higher education institutions here in China. So I guess my question is, how do you ensure, the future? I'm sure there's going to be an intense proliferation in the future of these types of joint programs, or perhaps these also these one-year programs that are marketed out there to international students and to Chinese students. But what is being put in place to ensure the quality of the teaching that is going to be provided? I mean, you can guarantee that it's going to be great from PKU and Sichuan University and also Tsinghua University, but what about other institutions?
Well, I think there's several ways of doing that. First is probably we should have a lot of joint program. We have a credible, prestigious school that collaborate with Chinese schools, like Pittsburgh, Sichuan University, a good example. And the Yanjing and the Schwarzman program are internationally, renowned. So I think we should have more international cooperation, because if you want to offer international courses,
You need a partner.
Yeah, you need a partner. That's number one. Number two is that we should hire international faculties. Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, just about 35 years history, now ranked the top 100 university in the world. Is 85% of their faculty come from all over the world. And 40% of the faculty from Hong Kong University come from the world.
So in the end, you don't really say this is Chinese university. This is a world-class university.
Chinese university have 1%.
It's a global university.
Less than 1% faculty come from the world. I mean, that's really very small. So if you want to really attract international students, you've got to have international faculties.
Okay. All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk more about the globalization and internationalization of education here in China. Please stay tuned.
The most important thing is whether we can offer a quality program.
Okay. Is it because you're picking university?
Right.
Or is it, what about an average university in China?
The sound quality program is really very few, not many.
Okay.
So
you mean
now
the competition is not yet happening? Welcome back to Crossover. Let's continue our discussion now. According to the statistics, and we have at least like 800-900 joint programs in different forms. Either there's a campus, say different universities have a campus in China. New York University has campus in Shanghai. Nottingham, my university has a campus in Ningbo. So in other words, people are saying, well, maybe you guys are working very hard. Professors in Chinese universities are working very hard to try to attract more international students to come to China. But at the same time, your counterparts, your colleagues in overseas universities, they're basically doing the same thing. What do you think of these programs?
You're
what do
talking
you
about
think
the
of
competition.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, actually, you're right. But there's still quite a few challenges. First of all, the totally independent legal status of Sino-foreign universities was only 8 or 9 of them.
Okay.
It was strictly.
So we have a watchdog, the Ministry of Education.
Exactly.
Right.
There was not approval in big numbers.
Right.
Then you have a huge number of so-called cooperative programs.
Yes.
Can be if the dean is empowered, then this program is running well. If the dean is out of the place, that program can be vanished, or maybe just in the name. So the sound quality program is really very few, not many.
Okay.
So
You mean
now
the competition is not yet happening?
well, the competition is happening, but then there's not enough.
My guess is that these gentlemen are not seeing that competition because they are Beijing University
No competition,
and Tsinghua University.
We see competition anywhere.
Yeah.
This is like a marketplace for the world. It's not, let's say, you are restricted to China. So go back to the quality control of the new English taught program.
Right.
I don't worry about that at all. Right? We are just competing with those foreign universities coming into China. We're also competing with universities around the world already. So the most important thing is whether we can offer a quality program.
But is it because you're picking university?
Right, I was
or is
gonna say,
it, what about an average university in
Right.
China?
An average university offers a program, you think college is not good, and then students will tell, right? They won't attract good students. So let the market work. I think it will solve it by itself. We as universities just offer the best programs we can.
Okay.
I think MOE also monitors this whole thing very carefully. Among all those 900 programs here, there are so-called different level of institute, joint institute level, including the branch campus from the foreign university in China. The other is called the program, joint program. That's a lot. The joint institute, I think, if you look at the United States one, there are only 6 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's approved by MOE. And I think most of them are concentrated on the coastal area, Shanghai in particular. And we are actually in the West. So I think that some kind of the distribution, MOE is carefully crafted who can work with in what level. Right. So for example, we do engineering. The reason Chengdu, in fact, is going to be the epicenter for the new Silk Belt, the economy.
Okay.
So this is a good place for manufacturing, and a lot of, I think 75% of iPhone actually produced in Chengdu city.
All right.
So it depends on the needs. I think that's what the Joint Institute really, will meet the requirements, also the overall strategy in terms of the international collaboration from both the government, also for industrial needs.
Most of these institutions are happening in bigger cities.
Yeah.
And actually, most of the foreign students are coming to bigger cities to study. So how much are they understanding about the real China?
Well, in our program, the students are not only sitting in the classrooms. They go out. We organize activities for them to visit the courts, law firms, and companies to understand how the Chinese rules are going on in the real society. And also there are many activities for them to mix up with the Chinese students, not only for sports activities, but also for some social activities. For example, to help the immigrant children and to help the peasant workers' schools. So there are a lot of ways for them to mix up. And also we offer some, the internships for international students in Chinese firms, in companies. So many of them learning the language in the classroom, and at the same time they understand the society, understand the culture, and also they have the opportunity to experience in the particular professional field, in firms or in companies. So all these ways bring together the students, international students, will immersed in the society.
Along with what we've been talking about, what these students are going to gain from programs like this, there's also the flip side, because they become ambassadors of China. It's fundamental in diplomatic relationships in the future.
I totally agree. I think the rise of China and its strengths and its future potential now attracting students to China, to our universities, more than anything else. And of course, our faculty is developing our research. Look at the recent Nature Science Index. Chinese university did very well in the recent years. So the students come to China, we offer them this opportunity not only to learn a discipline, but also the China.
Now back to the global to local element that we talked about. We have a video clip of a localization of a joint program here in China. Let's take a look.
In today's world, especially in the rapidly changing world that's still highly uneven, for students to develop a perspective that is global to village. And towards this end, I'm especially lucky to have a position in which I can develop a program that can truly reach the village. Here in this village, actually, I have developed Rural Research Institute. The name is called Heyang Institute for Rural Research. This village actually is in Zhejiang Province, Jingyun County. Through support from local governments and also fellow university colleagues, I have been able to operate this research institute. in a heritage village, which has 1,000 years history and is still maintain many cultural practices, agricultural practices, as well as all kind of cultural customs that I feel is very important for students from all over the world to learn. Because in China, the urban-rural divide is still a key issue, and transformations in the Chinese village level is especially important for understanding China. So in our double degree program, we have been able to bring some of the students who are interested in advanced research to the village and to conduct field research to find out how everyday life is looking like in a Chinese village setting. And my hope is that this kind of facilities will not only be useful for students in my own program, but also for students in other international study programs all over China.
A research center about the real China, the villages, rural areas located in a real village in China.
Right, and this is what I was getting at, getting those international students to the rural countryside to not only understand one aspect of China, but to understand the roots of China, you know, agriculture, the rural countryside, and to really witness and experience that.
Well, that is one project. I guess that reflects what you doctors are now talking about. It's really about you need to have this global horizon, but at the same time you focus on what's happening around you.
With the local understanding, right.
Exactly.
Yeah, understanding the reality of the society.
Right.
And this is and understanding the reality of the society is not only local, it's international in another sense. Because China has successfully developed its society and has already quite successfully solved, well, to a certain extent, the problem of poverty. So how to solve the local issue is not only local, it's international. It's a new way of international community to look at.
Because we're all interconnected.
Right, particularly for the developing countries.
Right.
This is actually more experience China could offer. So my sense is that this is kind of way to look at the previously purely local issue from international perspective.
Interesting.
And this is actually what we say internationalization in the real sense.
We've been talking about how the internationalization of education, these higher education institutes have will bring on greater mutual understanding between countries. These students will go away with a greater understanding of not only China, but also of the whole world. When we come back, we're going to talk more about their job prospects after graduating from one of these programs. Please stay tuned.
What about Chinese students? Are they not complaining? Say, you're not helping us and you're helping international students?
No, we are helping every student. They are all our students.
We train all these talents in particular professional fields, but in these particular fields, the market is not open. This is ridiculous.
What about local employees?
Yes, you have to protect them.
You're basically eating away our market share.
Exactly.
Welcome back to Crossover. Today we've been talking about this keyword, internationalization of higher education. Now it comes down to the final part of our today's program, but it's more about what we mentioned earlier. It's more about these new policies or maybe new developments of foreign students. When they decide to study in China, there is one aspect they would consider, whether or not they would get the chance actually to be able to work at least for a while in China.
I think in the past, you know, a student, when they study in China, they have to go back after they gain 2 years experience before they can readmit back to China.
That's the policy.
Yeah, that was the policy before. I
So
mean,
it's changed.
Before last year, actually.
But that's for state-run employers, not for private sectors.
No, private sector.
For all.
I mean,
It's the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, for whole country. And I remember there's a student, you know, American student who studied in China, has perfect Chinese, and then she has to go back to the United States for 2 years, and then she ended up getting to Iceland. You know, I mean, forget about China because it hasn't got the China experience.
Well, and you lose the connection, right?
you lose the connections.
Right.
Yeah, so I think, you know, actually our think tank is quite actively involved on that. We've been promoting the policy of attracting foreign students to China, but also helping them to get an internship visa and entrepreneurship visa.
So you're saying that policy has now changed. Now you can graduate from your program and work right away. So you find
now, since, for example, in Shanghai, since last year, foreign students can stay in Shanghai to work if they graduate.
They can apply for work permit after
Shanghai.
graduation.
And since this March 1st, the students working in Beijing in Zhongguancun, they also can work here as well.
Silicon Valley
in the name of
China,
internship and also entrepreneurship.
I hope, of course, changes are happening, but I hope it happens faster.
Yeah.
Our students who are graduating, so some very talented foreign students want to work for China, and of course Chinese firms, not only multinationals but also our own SOEs, local Chinese firms, private firms, want to hire these students because they are really smart and talented. They can promote their internationalization of their business. However, the visa issue. So we hope that change will happen soon.
But what about Chinese students? Are they not complaining? Say, you're not helping us and you're helping international students?
No, we are helping every student. They are all our students. Okay. And also, there are some students, actually we already seen a few of our students, international students and Chinese students, they team up together to come up with startup entrepreneurial ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, this is another problem for that foreign part of the team.
So in your two programs at Peking University and Tsinghua University, how are you seeing the percentage of students who stay after graduation grow? How has it grown?
Well, I don't have the general picture, but for our program on Chinese law, and there amazingly, and 1/3 of these graduates work in China or in Hong Kong or in, Asian area relating to Chinese legal practice. This is quite amazing. And I think, number one, we should thank the governmental policy change to encourage foreign students to stay in China and, join the working force and open more opportunities for them. I can see in recent years the changes of the policies. And that's why we have our graduates who work in law firms in Beijing, Shanghai, and we have some Italian students set up their trading companies in Shanghai. We have amazingly, some graduates, Latin American graduates, working in a small city in Guangdong.
One of your own students, Christoph from Tsinghua University,
he's working in Beijing.
He had something to say about this issue. Let's hear what he had to say.
I see.
Okay.
Many wanted to stay at the beginning. Many came with the intention to afterwards work here, but many of them couldn't because let's start other ways. In China, there's usually a requirement that you have to have 2 years experience abroad before you're allowed to work in China. And that's what most of them didn't fulfill. They came to China right after their studies in their home jurisdiction and then came here, studied here, and then didn't fulfill this requirement and therefore had to leave again. Could have come back after a couple of years, but naturally it's a little bit more difficult to come back after a 2 years break than to stay here right after the studies.
Yeah, 2 years, you lose the momentum as you talked about.
But it's changed.
Right.
That exactly, I mean, all the other countries have a track system. You have expectations. For example, if a student go to the United States or go to Canada, or you can first get a student visa, and then they give you a working visa, and then give you a green card. You got the track system to climb. But here in China, you
straight
you
to
stop,
the point.
Yeah, just 2 years.
And here, if you want that working visa, you still need to be sponsored by a company, correct?
Right now, the policy, as I think the professor mentioned very clearly, we have a liberalization already, but it's not enough. So we hope that demonstration effect will really get ripple effect across China.
You were
And
not
also,
finished,
on top of that, there is another issue we need to consider. For every special professional field, there are certain, credentials required. For example, for law. If you want to become a Chinese lawyer, you have to take the bar exam.
Right.
And if you're an international foreign lawyer, you cannot work in the Chinese law firm as Chinese lawyer, or even as a lawyer, any kind of lawyer. You must claim yourself as a legal counsel. So, namely, the professional markets, not only law, but in many other professional fields I know, are relatively, to a certain extent, closed up. So this is another hurdle we really need to come over. Otherwise, we train all these talents in particular professional fields. But in this particular field, the market is not open. This is ridiculous.
What about local employees?
Yes, you have to protect them.
You're basically eating
Right.
away our market share.
Exactly.
Exactly, that's what I was just describing. There was no really a competition because there's a lot of company wants to go global. China, international investment is larger than the foreign investors coming to China now. We have so many Chinese companies wants to go global. They don't the biggest hurdle they have is talent, global talent. They don't have enough talent. So if we have spent so much resources training so little foreign students in China that compare with the rest of the world, and then you can't keep them. You lose them.
We have one more video for everyone to watch. Let's take a look.
I gave a presentation recently to a group of undergraduate engineering students. And at the end of the presentation, I entertained questions. And one of the students, Kimberly, asked if we could discuss a topic that was outside the scope of the presentation. I said, sure, what's up? She said, I'm graduating next semester, and I've been interviewing with companies. And she said, they're telling me that they prefer that I have more experience. And she says, that kind of angers me. She said, I just spent 5 years busting my butt in college, meeting all the requirements, jumping through all the hoops, doing everything I'm supposed to do. I was inducted into Tau Beta Pi Honor Society, and now they're telling me I need more experience? How am I supposed to get a good job without experience? And how am I supposed to get experience without a good job? And experience doing what? What's that even mean?
What does it mean? So, as an engineering professor, what does it mean?
Well, I think you probably heard a lot of our current graduate in China. It's very hard to find a job. In the meantime, companies, especially multinational companies, always complain we could not find the talent to meet the needs. So I think that number one, I think we should look at how the industrial is changing, both globally or also in China. You must have heard Made in China 2025, try to make China to be the manufacturing superpower by 2049, almost 100 years after the founding of the PRC here. But it's a three-stage programs now. 2025 is build up the infrastructures. 2035 will start to compete with major companies. 2049 will be the #1 in the world from the manufacturing side. So what we do is basically we get into the Internet 4.0 plus. Basically, the manufacturing become more information technology, also intelligent-based. Are our students ready for that? Okay. In fact, the current story heard from the multinational company or the potential the employers always think we need to do more. I think MOE knows that. I think that's what we do. We try to implement more innovation, also creativity into our curriculum.
Right, you're trying to prepare them for jobs in the future.
Right, and Chinese students knows we are probably the best in the math and science, but you get to the innovation parts, and they're a little behind. In fact, it's very good, interesting. The study going to release by Stanford, and they study Chinese students, 2,000 Chinese students versus 2,000 American students. The students when they graduate from high school in the Gaokao time, they are best in math, science, even critical thinking is very good.
But not when they get deeper into the program.
Yeah, after 2 years.
Then they are
after 2 years,
behind.
critical thinking, America is far ahead.
Right.
And the gap between the math and science also narrow very significantly. What does this tell us? There's some kind of education reform may be required.
Yeah, it just shows and how much importance we need to actually attach to exactly the topic we're talking about, internationalization of higher education, the change of mindset, and also the composition of an international faculty, and also the attraction of international talents, make them stay in China. I guess when these changes are happening, the problems you just talked about can be solved.
I think
so I think the driving force is not only government, the institution, but also industry needs.
Right, and I think what we're also saying is that there are long-reaching effects of all four of you are involved in today. And that really, at a micro level, means students being more aware of what's happening in China. But at a macro level, it perhaps means better understanding between countries and governments later on in the future. And, you know, we all can be proponents of that. I want to thank the four of you for being here with us today on Crossover.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. Thank you.
And thank you to our viewers at home for tuning in with us. We'll see you next weekend on Crossover. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.